When Clint Eastwood signed on to make A Fistful of Dollars, or The Magnificent Stranger, as it was titled all through production and up until 3 days before its initial release, he didn't expect anything much. In fact, he expected it to be pretty much terrible, but he figured it would never be released or seen overseas or anywhere outside of Italy, or at the very least Europe. So he wasn't too bothered. Plus, he'd never been to Spain or Italy, and he was excited to use the paid work as an excuse for a vacation and to see some of the world. But instead, he ended up working on his most iconic character ever, and a role that would go on to define much of his career, both as an actor and later as a director. And it also started off his greatest partnership with a director, with Sergio Leone, who also didn't fancy Eastwood at first, didn't think much of him from his work on Rawhide, described him as more of a body on screen rather than a real presence. And he really wanted James Coburn, but James Coburn wanted 25 grand and he could get Eastwood for 15 grand. Thank God. I think James Coburn would have been okay, but who can you imagine playing the man with no name rather than Clint Eastwood? A man who did have a name, by the way. He's credited as Joe in the credits.
Yeah.
But
Listen, Joe. Listen, Joe. Oh, Joe.
But anyway, so on to the movie. Phil, this is one of our all-time favourite directors and one of our all-time favourite films. One of the films that, talking about when we first met as kids, was kind of one of the things that we bonded over, really.
Yeah. I mean, I just love the Western genre in general. A bit of a tongue twister there. But I actually done the Dollars trilogy the wrong way round when I watched Good, the Bad and the Ugly first, then For a Few Dollars More, and this last. And I would say, and I'll ask you this question after, out of all three of them, obviously Good, the Bad and the Ugly is well known in our opinions to be the best out of them, but out of Fistful of Dollars and A Few Dollars More, what do you think is a better film? Out of the two, because I think Good, the Bad and the Ugly.
I would actually say I returned to A Fistful way more, but I actually think For a Few Dollars More is the better film. You see with each movie, but especially with each movie in the Dollars trilogy, Leone moving up gears in his style, discovering his voice and discovering his storytelling style and improving his technical abilities, refining everything with each movie. And for A Few Dollars More, it was his last small movie, I'd call it, compared with what came later. But he was really starting to flourish with his flair and his style of filmmaking, and you could tell he really understood what he wanted to do, and his vision was really coming across. I feel like Ennio Morricone, it's some of his most underrated scores.
Yeah,
in For a Few Dollars More. So great movie, but we're talking about Fistful today. So let's get into the story. So we start off, of course, with the man with no name coming into town. Interesting, actually, just before we get into it, what's great about the man with no name, he's the man with no name and the man with no backstory. You never get any context of where he's come from or what he's about. You get these little glimpses every now and again, but nothing really. And it's arguable whether he's even the same character throughout the Dollars trilogy. Some people argue he's not. But ABC, when they were going to release the movie back in the day, I'm stealing your trivia.
No, I got this.
They were worried about the lack of context, and they didn't see it as something that's a benefit to the movie. They saw it as something that was a real drawback and would confuse audiences. So they actually, without any permission or any of the original actors, filmed a fake opening scene with a fake Clint Eastwood, never showing his face conveniently, where he is given a order. He's given a reprieve by the sheriff, taken out of jail, and told that if he goes and kills these two gangs in this town by any means necessary, he'll get a full pardon.
That pardon is yours if you do a job for us. No, just listen. You've got two choices. 1, you spend the rest of your life in this hole. 2, you do what I tell you. You know the town of San Miguel? It's about 3 days' ride south, just across the border.
And then it goes into the opening scene.
Yeah.
So it's really funny seeing that they made up an opening scene, and the fact that was even a thing that studios did or networks did.
It was because ABC, and like this makes, I'm sorry, but it makes like American audiences sound a bit stupid. They're like,
well,
you can't just.
The movie was originally incredibly popular in America, so I think it makes network execs sound dumb. But sorry, yeah.
But I've seen the scene; it's so fucking funny. Like,
It's so.
Have you
stupid.
seen it? He
Yeah,
starts
yeah.
up in prison, and he's like, you can tell straight away it's not the same like jumper because it looks totally different, and it's just behind him, and like it's just his cowboy hat, and you just see like bellows of smoke, and you're like, right, that's definitely not him. But in a way, I thought the scene was executed very badly, but it was kind of a cool idea in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like,
It's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Basically, just doing mashups to
Yeah.
existing iconic movies. So I'd be interested if that happened with more movies back in the day. Obviously, it wouldn't happen now because of copyright issues. But anyway, so the movie. So we get in, and the man with no name rolls into town, and straight away, he sees something that will become very prominent later, where a child is trying to get to his mother, but these bandits are shooting at his feet and mistreating him horribly and beating up the husband and this, that and the other. And he sees that, he notices it, but he ain't getting involved. Because he's the quintessential anti-hero and one of the first anti-heroes really that got popularised in the mainstream. He's interested, he does have a morality that comes out later, but he's interested in his own greed and his own interests, and he'll do anything to get there, including murder. And we see that straight away because he rolls into town, and we have his confidant essentially throughout the movie, the bar owner, and a guy who kind of also gives him a room to stay throughout the movie, who starts telling him, you don't want to stay in this town, it's terrible, everyone dies here, no one works here unless it's killing. And he hears hammering outside. He's like, what's that? And they open the bay windows, and you see the only guy that works in town is the coffin maker.
my favourite character, actually.
The coffin maker.
I just love him, man. Like, he's just such a funny character. Like he just he just loves it. Like, he just rubs his hands in glee, like when there's like dead bodies piling up. Like, what a job! Like,
and we have. It's also beautiful framing. Like, this is what I mean, where he hadn't fully realised his vision yet as a director, visually. But I just love that, you have that beautiful widescreen, and you got Eastwood on one side and the bar owner on the other side, and then the bay windows open, and we have that slight camera movement inwards, and it's perfectly framing the coffin mate. And it's just Leone all over. And Leone all over is also the next scene, where we have our first proper shootout.
yeah,
Beautifully done. And again, the violence in Leone movies are short-lived. It's about the preamble. And the preamble is some of my favourite ever, where the guys have embarrassed him by sort of slapping the back of his horse, scaring his horse and having him ride off. And he comes back, and I just love the exchange where he doesn't mind, he doesn't care, but his horse is offended and his horse wants them to apologise.
Scared.
It's so good, man. And I forgot how good it is, because I actually remembered this being cornier, and I love the corniness aspect, but I remember it being cornier than it actually was this time viewing it. Like, the lines were actually killer at times. And him delivering that, saying, at first it's comical and they're laughing and they're over the top, like really phone it in laughing sort of manner. But when he shifts gears and he starts saying, I don't like you laughing, my mule doesn't like you laughing, he gets a funny idea you're laughing at him, and you feel that change in atmosphere.
See, my mule don't like people laughing. It's the crazy idea you're laughing at him. Now, if you apologize like I know you're going to.
And he fucking blasts them all away.
About 4 actors, we've discussed one already. Another 3 turned down the role simply because they read the script and was like, this is shit. They're like, and like now it I don't understand why they would do that, but
Well,
thank
partly,
God.
but
Yeah.
to be fair, it's hard to say how close the final movie is to the original script, because I don't. It's not substantiated, but I've heard rumours that the original script was actually very wordy, and it was Eastwood's suggestion and pushing to cut down the dialogue. And it's interesting because if that is true, then that accidentally shaped what became a hallmark of Leone's style. And it's not unsurprising because you see directors all the time discover their style over time rather than just have a vision beforehand necessarily. But it's very interesting to think, like, what if he cast someone else and they didn't care? And they were just like, okay, I'll say whatever lines you give me. And would Leone have discovered that style naturally, and would he have gone on to be as amazing as he was? But also, another reason why it's hard to tell if how similar it will actually be to the final product is that, like we know, any Leone fan knows, or any spaghetti western fan knows, that the movies would be recorded and then they'd be completely dubbed over. A lot of the time, to the point that Eastwood would later talk about how he'd be recording his scenes and there'd be people playing frisbees in the background, there'd people dancing and laughing and joking and playing music and drinking just maybe 10 feet away from him while he's trying to do his lines. And he found it very jarring because they didn't care because they knew they won't be using the sound. But, you know, you have all these distractions going on while they're trying to do the scenes. And he actually also was warned beforehand by some of his friends who were Hollywood actors but had worked on European or Italian sets that you have to remember your own lines, because when you come back to dub it later, half the time they've lost it or they don't know what it was. So he made a point of remembering what his lines were, but oftentimes would improvise when they were in the studio a year later dubbing. So he would maybe tweak lines here and there, or keep the spirit of it but improve upon it if he felt he could. So it probably bears zero resemblance to the original script.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Again.
So getting back to the movie,
Baxter's over there. Rojo's there. Me right in the middle.
so we have the classic line of the Baxters on one side and the Rojos on the other, and me bang in the middle.
Yeah.
And that basically sets up the whole premise of the movie, where the man with no name has loads of fun fucking with both sides, playing them off each other, using tricks and at times kind of comically set up ways of messing with the potential piece that might be on the cards, so that he can continue to play both sides and make a fistful of dollars. Come away with a fistful of dollars in the process.
More than a fistful, because he fucking earns about, like, his payouts for each thing he does against the family, like, it goes up, it's like $100, $500. And knows how much, like, he must have been fucking, when he rode out of the town at the end, he must have been fucking loaded. Because $500 at the time must have been like, this money, £1 million, like, you know?
A lot. I say an absolute fuckload. But it's just, it's a beautiful version of the real world. You know, it's that spaghetti western universe where, again, it's like we talked about this before with Django, where I want to understand how the economy operates, because like they said at the beginning, it does seem like the only people that have jobs, real jobs, are the bar owner and the coffin maker.
Undertaker,
and everyone else just seems to be paid to kill each other.
Well, you got the soldiers. There's always
that's
soldiers in it. I guess they get some sort of money, but they just, in every single western, like, the actual soldiers end up dead.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's like, right.
Well, as well, because another thing going back to Django is, watching this again, I knew Django was a pretty much beat for beat rip-off in a lot of ways, but it really is a beat for beat rip-off. And we can't call that a beat for beat rip-off without obviously mentioning the fact that this is a remake of Yojimbo.
In Japan, basically, when it went to Japan, this film, the director of Yojimbo basically sued the studio, because it, as you said, it's a shot for shot, which Tarantino is well known for doing, and he's influenced by this film, by the way. He sued him, the Japanese director of Yojimbo, and then he owned, basically he got 15% of all its, like, rights or whatever, so he raked it in. He got 15% of all its rights in like China, and he owned all the rights in Japan. So basically, he renamed this film in Japan from A Fistful of Dollars to Yojimbo Returns.
Really?
Yeah. So like it doesn't make any sense. And it ended up being like, out of all his directing projects, this film, because of all this, made him the most money in his whole career. He had nothing to do with it.
That's actually true. That's true, because he made some amazing movies.
Yeah.
Some of the best movies of all time. Some that we will definitely review at a later date.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the film. So what did you think of the way Eastwood was sleuthing about in this?
Well,
because it never actually went into the realm of implausibility. It felt believable the way he was playing them off each other.
I mean, I like his character in general, just because he's a legend over the whole trilogy.
Yeah,
but he's 100% got no morals, has he? Like, he just wants, like, I think he genuinely does like the bar owner. That's the only person he genuinely... And I think he likes the Undertaker as well. He genuinely... Later on, we will see what happened to the bar owner, but he's genuinely concerned about him and he goes and helps him. But other than that, he's just really... What he is, a glorified mercenary that just comes to this town, rinses it, leaves everyone dead and fucks off. Like, so I didn't... If you think about it like that, don't really like his character.
He is, like you said, a bona fide legend.
Yeah.
He is a G. You know, he's the kind of guy you'd have a man crush on.
Yeah.
But he is evil. Like,
he is, yeah.
Happy to murder multiple people for, pretty paltry sums when you put it up against human life. And also ruin possible peace for this little town he's rode into, just for the sake to make a bit more money out of it.
That's true as well.
But he's a G. I love it.
He also, we'll go into the plot a bit more, but he also does one good thing later on.
Yeah, one moral thing, which is why he's not a complete hunk of shit.
Yeah.
I've been to talk to the Rojos. They'll give back Antonio in exchange for Marisol. It'll take place in the morning.
Very soon, you're going to be rich.
So Eastwood starts working for the Rojos, but he also wants to start building a relationship with the Baxters in order to play them off each other. So he's working with the Rojos and he's hearing about this other older brother who's supposedly the biggest badass in town. So he kind of wants to go meet him. So he sneaks out one day and finds him and his men murdering all these army officers in order to steal their gold.
Yeah.
So they return. So he knows that firstly this guy's not to be fucked with, but also that they have a load of gold back in the fort. So he goes back and he's staying in the bar and he's doing this and that, and he plots to use some of the bodies of those soldiers and he puts them up like they're still alive, puts their guns in their pockets.
Take it easy now, will you? These two friends of ours here are going to help me pay your bill.
Get up there!
Goes over and tells the Rojos that, some of those soldiers survived, like we got to go get them. And also, I think the Baxters are going to go speak to them and blah, blah, they're going to find out this and that. And then he sneaks over to the Baxters at the same time and tells them that, the Rojos are going to do this and you got to go over to the cemetery because this is happening, blah, blah, blah. So while they're both there, both thinking they're there for other reasons, start shooting at each other, get into a big fight. And meanwhile, the man with no name, I love this scene. He goes to steal the gold, but I just love this moment where he's sort of hiding behind the pillar.
Yeah.
And he's shooting at the guy's feet and he can never tell where it's coming from.
And it's clearly coming from behind the pillar.
Yeah. And he sort of reminded me of a guard in a video game.
Oh, yeah.
You know the way they'll just be like, huh?
You like that old N64 game.
Yeah.
And you'd be like right in their face and they'd be like... spinning. He's one of my favourite characters. The grunt, actually, the big, he's such a bully, but
also my favourite death scene.
With the barrel,
with the huge barrel running down and crashing into him.
I like. I like the way that we meet the grunt, and then one of the Rojo brothers is like, "This is one of my most trusted guns," like, and then the man with no name, or Joe, knows that he can't beat him like with force, so he just uses his brain like to shoot and then shoot the door down. I'm like, that's really cool, man. I love that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's also good because I don't think he wanted to kill him. I think he wanted to just knock him unconscious.
Yeah.
So he goes in and steals all the gold, but then also accidentally knocks out one of the chicks who comes across him.
Yes.
So he cleverly brings her back to the Baxters.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the Rojos have caught one of the Baxters' sons. So they end up doing a trade-off.
Hate this son guy, man. He's such a little dickhead.
He is a dickhead,
he's such like the Baxter's dad is alright. He seems to be a bit of a, compared to the Rojos, they're just weak in general. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they are weak, and the barman says as much to Eastwood at the beginning, which is why Eastwood sides with Rojo straight away.
But the son is just like, he just seems to be just like a general fuck up.
He just don't have it.
Yeah, he just doesn't have it. Yeah.
But so they have the trade off, and it's all going good. But Eastwood is he's starting to get the suspicion from the Baxters and the Rojos.
Yes.
But he's so useful. He's the best at killing. Also, kind of threatening to them. So it's good to have them on side.
They kind of made me laugh about this movie because it's so obvious what he's doing, and like, although they do question it, they're like, "Where are you getting this information from?" It's like, it's clearly him though, isn't it? Like, this random geezer has rolled into town. He's telling you information about the other people and telling you, like, it's clearly this guy. And they're just like, "What you doing, Yankee?"
Yeah, well, the only thing that makes me not trust the Baxters, not understand why the Baxters would trust him at all, is that he kills 4 of their men straight away the first day he rolls into town.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, I kind of go with it, because you're forgetting that they aren't seeing everything you're seeing.
I get you, yeah.
And he is giving them information.
Well, they can't see nothing because he's just behind pillars all the time.
So we have everything's going well. He's playing them off against each other. He's doing this. He's doing that. But Eastwood I think he's starting to prepare to leave town, even, or whatever.
Yeah, I think he's made enough money for himself.
But we have the family who are sort of somewhat imprisoned by the Rojos, comes back into play. And we have this horrible scene where the father and the child see the mother being led back to be captive with the Rojos, and the child is crying out, and they all embrace each other. And one of Rojo's men walks over to shoot the dad because they've said, like, we told you to get out of town, son. Why are you still here? And you see Eastwood for the first time. He's always been fantastic at
being
calculating that Machiavellian angle of what is best for me in this scenario. How can I play this off? And it's the first time you see his conscience gets the better of him. And he steps in, and it's such a subtle thing, because actually before that, the barman comes out with the shotgun.
It was actually the barman mostly,
But the barman comes out with the shotgun, but it's a really subtle thing, but Eastwood just steps forward.
Yeah.
He takes one step forward, and that tells everyone that if you try and kill the barman, I'm going to start fucking you lot up. And everyone goes their separate ways, but you can see the Rojos now. It's not that they know he's not on their side yet, but there's that thing thrown down that, okay, we don't have your complete loyalty here.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the first direct display against them. So anyway, so now we have Eastwood goes over to the house where the woman's being held captive, and he does what he does, where he just sort of goes like, a couple of times, and everyone's dead a second later, and he reunites the family, and he sends them off on their way.
Yeah, this is the point that I was making earlier, Declan. This is, I guess, the only moral thing he does in the whole film, because the rest is all about him. And I thought it was quite good that he got to do that one thing, because as the audience, you're like, this is a really cool guy, but I just can't like him because he's just a scumbag. So I like the way they sandwich this in to show that he isn't a monster. He has his own.
I've got to be honest. Am I bad that I just still love him the whole way through?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't
Well,
like
just,
even if you took this segment out of the movie, I just think
it's like going off track a little bit. Like if you saw Hunter S. Thompson like running around and like coke and like tasering people like he tasered Johnny Depp, you'd be like, what a fucking dickhead, but he's so cool.
Yeah.
I want to hang around with him.
I want to hang out with him. I don't want him to be my direct
Yeah,
neighbour.
exactly. Yeah,
But yeah, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, he is.
Much distance between yourselves and San Miguel as possible.
How may we thank you for what you are doing?
Don't try. Just get going before the Rojos get here.
Yeah. So next, they figure out it's him. They capture him and they beat the shit out of him. This is probably the only scene that was ripped off by Django that I actually think was superior in Django.
Yeah, when so they're beating him up, and then you've definitely got the thing where they tread on his hands. I was like, this is Django.
But they don't sell the beatdown as well in this movie.
No, they don't.
They really don't. Like Clint Eastwood, I mean, it might not have been his fault because they might have not used his dubbing, but he just doesn't make any noise anytime he's getting hurt.
And he gets like, he's been battered for ages. His like face is a mass of blood, but he still manages to get up, even though they've trod on his hands. And punch the big grunt in the face. I'm like, no chance. Like, you'd be down. Like,
and he ultimately escapes and doesn't give up any information. But while that's going on, the Rojos go over to the Baxter's residence and blow up the whole house and
set on fire.
Kill every last one of them. And it's sad. Like, it is brutal. Like, I quite like the Baxters. If you were going to kind of be on one side of the villains, you'd be on their side. They clearly decide that want peace.
But didn't their house have a back like exit? Because the house is massive. Like, why wouldn't they just like go out the back and like ride off?
Well, they didn't have much money, so I assume they only built one side of the set.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I guess they had nowhere else to go. Maybe it was just a studio wall behind them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But anyway, they come out the front, they get blapped, and that's it. The Rojos have control of the whole town. Nothing can stop them.
Do you know what makes me laugh about this scene? Because the like death falls are so funny. Like, they come out, they shoot the son in the head, and he drops, and he's like that. Like, his back is, and I was thinking, that must Kane. Like, he's falling on a rock like that.
He falls back onto like the wooden steps.
Yeah, like that. Like,
fucking
impelled, like. But yeah, it was sad for them to die like that in a way, because they literally waved the white flag, surrendered. The Rojos, you know, they kind of like lead them on a bit and going, "Are you going to leave town? You're going to leave town?" They're like, yes, I promise. But we all knew they're going to kill you, aren't they?
Well, he also he disrespects them because he looks down on them by the fact that the wife is essentially sort of running the show.
Yeah.
Are you sure? You had better ask permission of your wife. Maybe she won't be too high.
So Eastwood escapes. He pushes the big old barrel, kind of like a scene at a Donkey Kong, where he pushes the barrel down, destroys the big bruiser, and gets out. And he's crawling around town all fucked up. Still has his ninja abilities, where he's just always in the right spot to watch what's going on.
What are you doing in there?
I want to take a look at this.
Yeah, the coffin guy carries him away in a coffin, but the man with no name orders him to stop, and he's kind of like peering out, looking at what's going on. And then what happens is the coffin guy kind of brings him to like a bat cave / abandoned mine kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what actually happens to the barman, how they find out, he was delivering like food and stuff to Eastwood, to the man with no name, and they intercept that. And then the old coffin guy comes back, and Eastwood is like slowly kind of like recovering. In between this, he's shooting this metal armor that plays a big part in the film, that he's nicked from the Rojos, and he goes, "Is there any news?" And he goes, "I've got some really bad news. They've captured the barman. They've strung him up. They've beat him up. I know this guy. He's really stubborn. He will never grass you up. He'll never tell you where he is." And then you just see a change in Eastwood as he, gets up, starts shooting, chisels down the armour, leaves the mine, and we're ready to fucking roll, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. For the big showdown.
One of the best showdowns, yeah.
With that beautiful piece of music.
Yes.
Such the perfect backscore to build up the presence. Because really, if you take out that music, all that happens is he just kind of walks out of mist and stands there for about 20 seconds, then starts walking towards him.
Yeah.
But intertwined with that music, it just creates this incredible, memorable moment. My favourite moment from the movie.
Yeah.
That involves no dialogue and no action. It's the bit between the action. It's the preamble, which again is always the build-up. It is always the most significant part in Leone movies. And I like the bit where I just like the growing anguish on the face of Big Villain as he's shooting with his rifle. He's shooting Eastwood time and time again in the chest and in the body, and he just keeps getting back up. And we know he's wearing that suit of armour, but it's not revealed yet.
Because the Big Villain with his rifle, he must be thinking, this guy's fucking otherworldly. Why won't he fucking die? Do you know what I mean? Because if you think about it, all his life, this Rojo brother has just got whatever he wanted through killing people. So he's trying to do the same thing, and it's just not working for him. So he's devoid. He's fucking flabbergasted. He's like, why can't this happen? Do you know what I mean? And then Eastwood, or the man with no name, said a great line. "Don't forget to aim for my heart, because if you don't aim for my heart, you won't kill me." Shoots him in the heart. Gets up, just drops the armour with all the bullet holes in it, and you're like, fuck me, this is great filmmaking.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And he kills him, kills all the bad guys, rides out of town. And I just love the final line of where they're talking about the army coming back in after investigating the murder of all the soldiers.
Yeah.
You mean the Mexican government on one side? Maybe the Americans on the other side? Me right smack in the middle?
We have to talk about, you touched on it, Ennio Morricone's music. Without it, it just wouldn't be the same film. And before he even made this film, Leone had the music from Morricone, and he's like, I'm going to make the scenes against this music, basically. And that's why some of the film scenes, I wouldn't call them filler, when he's going in between. He's just got these scenes in so he can put the music in. Extended the scenes so the whole piece rolls out.
And for me, what others might call filler for me, is the best parts.
Yeah.
That is the parts where it's just pure cinema.
Yeah.
And it's, the music, it's not like he's just pulled up a good soundtrack and gone through the catalogue and let's get some Rolling Stones in there and play over this scene.
Yeah.
It's music made for the movie that played before the movie sets the tone of the movie.
Yeah. You
can actually direct it with that in mind, understanding how it's going to blend together, and it just ends up being a marriage in heaven. And it was a marriage in heaven for the rest of Leone's career anyway, because he passed long before Ennio Morricone did. But Morricone is an absolute legend. We had the honour of seeing him live.
I was about to say, I could make a whole
year or two before he died
on Ennio. We saw him live at was it the O2? Was it?
Yeah.
I mean, he was far away, but it didn't matter what seats we were in. It was a whole orchestra. It was incredible, man.
He could have been 100 miles away, and the music would have still filled the room. It was just absolutely fantastic.
He played the breadth of his whole catalogue. You had the Mission and stuff like that, but when Ecstasy of Gold or the music from this came on, I was just fucking I was like nearly in tears.
The great thing about an audience is you get an immediate feedback that doesn't lie. And the audience didn't get up or more lively or more excited or more cheers for anything other than when he was playing his classic spaghetti western songs.
Yeah, incredible. So, Declan, all in all, like we always say at the end of our podcast, is this a good watch or an easy recommendation? Like, I can't even put into words like how much I want our viewers to watch this film if they've never seen it. It is, you know, and we'll review Good, the Bad and the Ugly, I'm sure of it, but if you've never seen Leone, you've never heard Ennio's mastery, beautiful, like, music, this is a great place for you to start. A great place if you've never even seen a Western. It's a 100 out of 100 recommendation from me, personally.
It is an iconic movie that started off a whole new type of genre, a whole new type of movie making that still inspires and is ripped off by movie makers today. Some of the most applauded and famous movie makers of the current generation. And it's the best thing about it is sometimes we recommend movies that are difficult to watch, masterpieces that are, you know, arty and this and saying something and grueling to get through. So, and sometimes we do a movie like this where it is just pure, unadulterated fun. I always think Leone's the perfect example of entertaining art. You can't watch this and not find it fun, entertaining, that kind of movie making where you're watching it always with a bit of a smile on your face, not quite laughing because it's not comedy, but you're just enjoying it, you're delighting in just how fun and charming the movie is. But at the same time, you can't deny that there is a brilliant level of filmmaking and it is art going on. Like, it is high level, intelligent filmmaking, but all the amazing talents are geared purely towards making something that is going to be entertaining. And I don't see how you could be disappointed in this movie. And if you don't enjoy it, then I'm not going to say, oh, you don't get it, but I do feel bad for you because you are missing out. This is an absolutely wonderful movie and anyone should watch it.
This is the Filming McFilm Film Show.